I'd like to call the Baldwin City Council meeting for May 12th, 2025 to order, please. If you will rise and join me for the invocation and the pledge. Father God, be with us tonight. Cover us with your light and your love and your protection. Please protect all the people in our city, especially our first responders. Help us make wise decisions for the city that we serve this evening. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
For the folks who are watching us on Facebook Live, we have press in the gallery. We have some folks here to address us. We have our city engineer. We have our police chief and our city clerk, our CAO, and Mr. Venter will not be with us this evening, but we do have a quorum. For the first item on the agenda, we need to amend the agenda, folks. Can I have a motion to amend the agenda by adding under new business item number 5, which is consideration approval of cleanup day budget amendment? I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Davis. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we have an item number 5 under new business. First item on the agenda is our consent agenda. Can I have a motion to approve the minutes, the consent agenda as presented? It's the minutes from Spring Council Retreat for 10/20/25, for 11/20/25, Council Meeting 4/28/25, and Work Session 5/26. I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter. Do I have a second?
I have a question.
Oh, I'm sorry.
With your,
I never got around to it. That's okay. Yeah. Whatever, it's fine. You sure? You okay?
well, she had a question and I just wasn't sure if it was resolved.
Yeah, I just, like I said, I ran out of time, ran out of energy, ran out of capacity.
I don't know if you're fine with that, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, you know what, it's fine, everything's fine.
Okay. So I have a second from Councilwoman Lehman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Public comments. If there are any Baldwin residents who have business with the city, please come forward, state your name and address. Seeing none. First item under old business is consideration approval of rescheduling the June 23rd council meeting. You remember we've talked about this at work session. We need to reschedule the June 23rd meeting because about half of us will be in Savannah for Georgia Municipal Association training, and we're moving the date from the 23rd to the 26th. Is everybody still okay with that? Okay. Can I have a motion to reschedule the June 23rd council meeting for June 26th?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have dueling seconds. I'll take it from Councilwoman Lehman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? A motion carries unanimously. Next item under old business, consideration approval of Highland Point manhole adjustments. We talked about this last week at work session. Again, this is we have it in our packet. It's being paid for by LMIG special issue funds. What's nice is that there's no match on those funds. We did get multiple, what's the word? Quotes, thank you. We got multiple quotes, and we are looking to go with Keener Construction. Did everybody have time to take a look at this?
Yeah.
Any questions?
I mean, they're gonna be really happy in Highland Point. I think I said in the last meeting, if it was my oil fin, it does seem I'd be really pissed off.
We're trying, folks. We're trying.
Well, we just want to point out that money is not coming out of regular funds.
Right.
It's from the LMIG special issue.
Exactly.
Which comes from the state, yeah.
Right.
And we don't have to match it. But it was what makes it special.
Yeah, this is above and beyond the LMIG money we usually get. There was money left over, we had to apply for it, and then it came to us, so that's great. Okay, can I have a motion to award the Highland Point Manhole Adjustment Project to Keener Construction as presented? I have a motion from Councilwoman Lehman. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Venter. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, under new business, consideration approval of first reading of Oak Terrace variance ordinance number 2025-051627. Ms. Woodmaster?
Well, good evening.
Good evening.
All right, so on page 6 of your packet is the application for a variance request for the Oak Terrace subdivision. This is the development going in off Duncan Bridge Road, just south of BC Grant. This project back in September submitted plans to the city of Baldwin for their water system. They're requesting to connect to our water system, but the development itself is outside the city limits of Baldwin. So they're just requesting access to our water system. So they went through the review process with our engineering firm. We approved those plans back in December, I believe. Scott Barnhart, our public works director, went out there and inspected those lines as they were being installed. Everything was according to the plans at that point in time. Because this project wasn't inside the city limits, once those lines were installed and we reviewed them, we took a back seat to the development process. The remainder of that project is under the purview of Habersham County. So what we didn't know is that the road, the physical road that is being built in that subdivision was actually moved over. It was adjusted from its original center marks that were installed. So when they installed this water line, it was just gravel, dirt road that was built in, and we measured out from there, or the contractor measured out from the staked line. However, the road, whatever topography issues there were, that road was adjusted in a couple of different spaces. So when we went back out there to review where the water lines were, now that everything was in place, turns out the water line is no longer in the 10-foot utility easement that was on the approved plans from the city. Scott went out there, reviewed it, took some pictures. There was a couple of other things going on during like the end of February through March, in that the power company, there was some issues with where the power boxes were installed, and so those had to be moved before we could go further. So once that was done, we went through and they submitted an as-built to the city of what was out there, and it was confirmed that where the water line was originally proposed is not where it is in the ground today. So the request from the developer there's two options or two requests before you. The first one is to accept the water line as is, not in the utility easement, or the second option is to allow this development to use a master meter. So what that would do, the master meter would be the only meter that the city of Baldwin read, much like Apple Pie Ridge subdivision.
Yeah.
The rest of those lines would remain private, or what we refer to as a private water system. So those are their two requests. We did reach out to our staff to determine what the recommendation would be, which is there's a secondary packet that we've provided to you. The first page is the staff recommendations. And then the two documents behind it, just for reference, are the utility plan that was approved by the city, and then the as-built that was submitted a couple of weeks ago, 6 weeks ago. The recommendation from, do you have any questions up to this point before I go through the recommendation?
Not yet.
Okay. So based on both Scott's and Fletcher Holliday's assessments, we, on page 2 of that staff recommendations, you'll see that it is our recommendation that we require the developer to verify with the EPD any and all regulations as it pertains to a private water system prior to the second reading of this ordinance. If the EPD is in agreement with the private system, a master meter would be acceptable with, the acknowledgement that the water line ownership has, an affidavit in place that we know who is accountable for that water system. And then if EPD opposes the private system, we recommend relocating the water lines in the appropriate utility.
Where are the lines, I think Mayor said something about are they under the road? The
In
lines?
some places, yes. They're right at the
Under
road
the
line or
pavement?
just under the pavement.
So moving them is not an option then, right? Moving the lines is cost prohibitive, right?
I'm sorry?
Moving the lines would not be an option.
No, not good.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear.
The one that is close to the road can be moved. The main line is 7 foot off the road, in the right of way. When it gets to the cul-de-sac, it gets right close to the road.
Okay,
And
it's
it's
not,
a 2-inch line.
Yeah, so there's the right of way, so from the middle of the road, to the edge of right of way. That is currently where the water line is. Where the utility easement was supposed to be was after this utility, or after the right of way. So
okay.
you have the right of way where the ditch line is that
Right.
you typically see, and then the 10 feet behind that was supposed to be the utility easement.
Is there a particular reason why we require, like, in my mind, and selling homes, was my career for the last 8 years, is it, I'm used to stuff being in, like, in the utility, I mean, in the easement.
In the right of way.
way for people.
In the right of way.
Yeah, I'm gonna have brain farts tonight. We're doing it. And we require it to be way further up into people's yards. And when I heard that, I was looking at Eric's, when he put his home in, the meter is like all the way in his yard and the clean out thing, and that's just, why do we do that? Is there a reason?
That might be, I'm not sure about Eric's.
Probably a Fletcher question.
Yeah, my assumption is that based on where that water line was installed at its installation, because of where it was connected, instead of extending it out further and putting the meter closer to the road, it was just connected where the water line actually is. But the reason, does that make sense?
No,
Yeah, the
because
bore.
They had to go under the road, I had to pay an extra $800 for that, I remember. No, they actually had to run the water lines on the opposite side of the road.
And your meter's on that side of the road or is it on your side?
It's on this side.
It's on my side, but it's way up almost next to the side of it. I mean,
It just was really weird. There was something about
I'm not sure.
our NDS that says that the water line has to be like 14 feet in. Is that right?
Did we have the MDS when we were building?
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
2020.
Yeah. Yeah. So I'm just trying to figure out like why we've got it like in the middle of people's properties and
Well,
actually.
because- And the other thing, sorry, the other thing is all the older, I mean, if you look at any older pre-existing the meters down there beside the pavement at the street.
Right.
Why is it right?
Which
That's
is
why-
less liability for
That's why we were
the city
discussing,
too.
I'm like, why is?
I'm
why is
happy
mine
to
in the
ask
middle of the
Scott.
yard?
Yeah, I don't know why they would have installed it there, but I wasn't out there when they did it. I'm happy to find out. I know that our minimum development standards require that separate utility easement because of, correct me if I'm wrong, Fletcher, but it's because of digging. You know, if somebody has to go in and repair a line, and it's in the right of way, there's some, help me out here, there's some rules.
Right, so if it's in city right of way, so the minimum development standards require service lines and meters to be installed within the right of way.
Right.
That is within the city's right of way. Now,
Okay.
if you're in the state or county right of way and you install utilities there, if that state or county decides to do any type of work in that right of way, then you're required to move those utilities at your expense. So therefore, we require, your minimum development standards require, that if you are not within the city's right of way and you're on private property or you're within the county or the state, then we require an easement. If you have an easement and that easement is granted to the city, then you don't have to move the utilities. You're granted an easement to have the utilities there, to maintain the utilities, and they can't require you to move them. So if you don't have an easement, in this particular case, this is the county, you're not within the city limits. So
Right.
that's what your MDS requires. So if you're on private property, you would have to have an easement. But if you're in the city, everything's installed in the city right away because you control the city right away.
Right.
I think there was an issue, correct me if I'm wrong, in Demrest. They had the state was coming in to do some work on 441, or was it in Clarksville?
Well, Demorest, I mean, so DOT just relocated, they've got the bridge, they did
right.
the turnabout and on 105 and 115, and all the Demorest utilities were there. Therefore, they had to remove them all. So
And
that's
we're kind of like in the same thing with up there on the highway, aren't we?
that's correct.
Same thing.
Yeah,
Yep.
so that's the problem with installing utilities in a right of way that is not owned and maintained by the city.
Right.
Thus, the reason why we require the easement, and as we did on this particular review.
So why did Habersham County make them move why were the roads moved from the original planned location?
Why was the original road?
Yeah, I don't think it was moved, to be honest with you.
Well, surely there's an original plan with a drawing somewhere, correct?
You have it in your packet.
Yeah, so the drawing that
Roads
you,
in a different place
the
than
drawing that you
original
see
plan.
is what was actually approved, which shows the 10-foot utility easement spanning the width of the road,
So
and then
when
the
would
water
that-
line to be installed within that easement.
Oh, man, I did bring my glasses today. Thank you.
So,
Please share.
so these homes are not in the city
Here,
limits.
thank you.
That's correct.
So there's no city tax revenue that's generated from the property owners or neighbors. So the only revenue would be from the sale of water itself.
That's correct.
So if there were a problem with the utilities down the road, especially in the cul-de-sac area, where it would have to be torn up, then the city would basically would be investing, I guess you could say, a lot of money to fix that.
That's correct. If we were to accept the water line.
If we accepted the water lines. If there's a master meter, then we only are responsible for the water lines up to that meter.
That's correct.
Okay.
But remember, we have a resolution that we passed in what, 2020, 21?
Yeah. I think
That
it's
said no more
2020.
master meters. So that's why we're being asked for a variance for that resolution.
I will also add that the minimum development standards that we have in place were approved and authorized by the EPD. So deviating from those is also telling the EPD that we've changed our rules on them as well. So it's not to be taken lightly. It is possible you are the city council, you've established those rules, but that does, I mean, there's a conversation we have with EPD. You know, we have, through EPD, EMI is our local issuing authority that allows them to review the plans so that these plans don't have to go through EPD and through their process. So they are allowed to go through EMI as our local issuing authority. And that approval is, the minimum development standards that we approved allowed us to get that designation. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So what does that mean for you guys, as far for putting in a master meter and privatizing the water lines? How does that,
It's either, yes.
Am I right?
Yes,
yeah. How does that work for you guys? What does that look like, in other words? I mean, do you guys end up selling it to like, who is it, the utilities,
Utilities, they,
for Apple Pie? Is that what would happen?
Yeah, we would have to sell the line.
Have you guys spoken with Utilities Inc. at all?
Sorry?
Have you had any conversation with Utilities Inc.?
Not yet.
Okay. And you're saying that in the cul-de-sac, some of the 2-inch line is under the pavement?
It's on the edge of the
It's on the edge of the
edge.
Yeah.
was there, no, you go ahead. Was there another issue with where the meters are in conjunction to the homes that are ready this somewhere? That in one of the documents, it seems like there was a concern with us going, or the water department going into people's yards?
We would not read those meters. If it was a private system, that wouldn't be our responsibility. Our responsibility would be reading the master meter, and there would have to be an agreement in place to ensure that the meter was calibrated annually, to ensure that it was still reading properly.
If the lines were, if it wasn't just a master meter and we accepted the lines, then if there was an issue up to the meter, the city's responsible. And I thought I read somewhere that some of the meters were close to where the.
It's on page 10, number 1. Says having the water line installed up to 10 feet inside the property line, which is how mine is,
Yeah.
would effectively cause the future homeowner to
Yeah.
lose use of this land for beautification.
Right.
I mean, yeah, I spent $10,000 on sod, but if they gotta tear up the water, then it is what it is.
It's, and I think that that's where my confusion is I just don't know why our meters are 10 feet into someone's property line, like.
Well, this would be in the east, well,
So
way
the
that it was in-
plans that were approved did not show that the
Right.
meters were 10 feet in the property line. There's a
Right.
10-foot utility easement
Yeah.
that's from the center line of the road. The meters would be placed in that easement, so it's not 10 feet in the property line. It was approved, the original plans that were drawn by the developer's engineer. So we weren't 10 feet
Yeah.
into the property line. We are within the 10-foot utility easement.
So the as-built is different from the original plan?
Correct.
Yeah, well, the gentleman just said he doesn't know why the road was moved. Why the road was moved.
But he just said the road wasn't, was it or wasn't it?
Yeah, I don't think the road was made.
Well, something
Then it has to be.
Right.
So why doesn't the as-built
What's going on?
match the plan?
The water line was not put in the right place.
Oh, okay, because you guys are used to doing it, in other homes that you've developed, or whatever you've developed. Typically, they go somewhere else and you put them where you're used
In
to
the
them
right way,
going.
yes.
But, and you missed it on the drawing, because the drawing showed that, but then. is that not-
Let's amend that real quickly to say the water line was not put within the easement designated on the plans.
Okay.
We're not quite ready to say at this point that the water line is not in the right place, but it is not in that easement that's designated on the plans. But first of all, we're looking forward to bringing you guys, 18 new customers, whether they're through a master meter or through your own meters.
Thank you.
But I'd like to ask on our part for the discretion to meet with Mr. Barnhart and Mr. Holliday some over the next couple of weeks and think through, are there more options? What can we do to make this work for everybody?
Sure.
And then report back to you guys, hopefully at that point, with some kind of a consensus that we all think is the right way to go forward.
I'm all for all the discovery and whatever options we can come to. I don't want you guys to have to, in my heart, I'm like, well, we should, if it's not under the actual pavement, then what's the issue? I don't have a problem with it. But if there's something that I'm missing as a pretty lay person when it comes to that, I know a little more than some, but, we just discovering all the things. I'm on board with it. And we did away with master meters for a reason. But if that is a solution that is a win-win,
There's always a hardship.
precisely a hardship, right? Then
And it's very much appreciated, and it's also appreciated that, we've seen that the recommendation is that if other means can't be found,
Yeah.
that maybe not excitedly, but that the council would, or that the staff would recommend the master meter. But we're hopeful that there are a couple other things that we could work through that might make, all of this palatable to everyone.
For sure, yeah. Do that, and then we'll have, this is just the first reading, so.
It's the first rate. What's your schedule for finishing out the development?
Over the next year and a half, 2 years.
For the houses.
For the houses.
Yeah, but we
Yeah, there's two
Yeah.
houses that are already built.
Within a month, we need to be buying water,
Okay.
maybe less than that.
Oh, so we don't have that much time then? We don't have a couple of weeks?
No, we have a couple of weeks.
You have until your next reading. You have the public hearing, the second reading, at the second meeting of this month.
So we can go ahead with the first reading?
Oh, yeah. I was gonna say, we did the first reading, and then, I mean, my schedule's fairly flexible. I don't know if I need to, you know, whatever, if I'm needed.
I have a question, so the meeting that you guys want to have with Scott, why didn't we already do this before this was filled out?
We did meet with them. Fletcher was not there, but Scott and myself were there. And we explained to them what the options were, which is why this is coming before you today.
But there's some additional options that we might like to propose, and, you know, some additional information that I would still ask for discretion of you guys to let us meet with staff first and talk through, and then try to come back to you guys with a palatable but unified solution.
Absolutely, I was, I guess, trying to figure out why those conversations hadn't already occurred.
But it has, they have. So a master meter is not
It's just more
palatable for
conversation.
you, or?
We're not saying it's not palatable, we think that there might be some other things that could be meet in the middle compromises that could allow the existing water line to be accepted, and would just, rather than talk through engineering related nerdy stuff like Fletcher and I are trained on, in front of you guys, I'd rather talk to Scott and Fletcher and really think through something, rather than just throw it out here for media and everyone.
Okay, I got you. You
And-
don't wanna quite spitball it yet.
Yeah.
I see, yeah. Cause I was like, hey, tell me all about it, but if that's something that you guys need to work through before you spit it out, then I get it.
Okay, so if there has to be 2 readings before something can be approved, and you guys are needing water within a month, is there time to set up that meeting and have the 2 readings? Can we fit that into the schedule?
Of course.
Okay.
Well, today's the 12th. Our next meeting is the 26th.
27th.
27th.
It's the holiday.
Holiday, thank you. So it doesn't push us into June. Give you 2 weeks.
Is that something that, are you guys flexible enough to meet over?
Absolutely, his schedule would be more tough to get around than ours.
Yes, I was just.
Scott's
thinking-
also very, whenever we need Scott, he's always pretty quickly available, so I expect that Fletcher's schedule would be the toughest one to meet.
And Emily too, both of them, they stay up to their eyebrows all the time, so was gonna be my next question, is that, will you guys have time in your schedule to be able to make that happen?
Of course.
I will make it happen.
Thanks, Dennis.
Okay, but
Okay, yeah.
if we read the bolded part of the ordinance,
Just allows it to go forward.
Yeah.
You can push the second reading at the 26th. If you're not ready to make a decision, you can push that second reading out. If you delay this one, it will also have to reset the public hearing as well.
Yeah.
but we have the public hearing established for May 27th as well,
Yeah,
the night of the second reading.
yes.
Okay.
We tried to make this as quickly as possible with the time frame allotted. They applied for this last week after our meeting. So we wanted to give them as much time as possible in the shortest amount of time as possible. We don't typically like to have a public hearing and a second reading at the same time.
Right.
Right.
And we appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We appreciate it.
Okay. So are we ready to read the bolded part of
Yep.
the ordinance? In ordinance number 2025-05162Z, an ordinance amending the zoning map of the city of Baldwin, Georgia, by granting variances to one parcel of land outside the city of Baldwin, Georgia, and owned by DB LLC and being tax map parcel 0920002A of Habersham County, Georgia, and being more particularly described on a plat which is attached hereto, and which is incorporated by reference into this ordinance, repealing conflicting ordinances to the extent of the conflict, to provide for severability, to provide for an effective date, and for other purposes. Can I have a motion to approve the first reading of the Oak Terrace variance ordinance number 2025-05162Z with the conditions as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter. Do I have a second?
Second?
I have a second from Councilman Keith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? One abstention and 3 in the affirmative, none in the negative. It was Councilwoman Davis who abstained. Thank you. All right, the next item on our agenda is consideration approval of the FY 2026 master fee schedule revision. Ms. Winchester.
So we did approve this a couple of months ago. It's set to take effect with the new rates established July 1. We wanted this to be ready to go for July 1. There are a few items that were left off, or we've uncovered it in an ordinance that we were reviewing, and we've since added it back, or added it in. So on page 18 of your packet is the first change. There's a returned item fee. The proposed amount is $10 versus what it currently is at $36. So this is the returned item fee from the bank that we're charged for putting in an item that is either insufficient funds, a closed bank account, suspected fraud, and that check goes through the bank. We get charged that fee. The $36 fee was established when we were still with South State Bank. That was their fee. And now that we're with United, it is only a $10 fee, so we want to reduce that back down to just accommodate the actual cost that is incurred by the city.
It's just a pass-through.
That's correct. And then on page 19, it's the same on 19 and 20, but this is under residential permits, is the new driveway. We have a driveway permit application. There just wasn't a fee established on the fee schedule that we had originally. So that is being added on there for $85. It's the same under the commercial, same thing, same expense for a new driveway permit is $85. There's also the utility encroachment permit. That's the ordinance the council adopted last year, I believe. We've established the fee for that. It's $115. And that is to include the amount of time that it would take staff to review the actual plan that's submitted to the city and then going out there and making sure that it's in the correct spot. And then we have, on the very last page, page 22 of the fee schedule, there is a note at the bottom that this schedule is not exhaustive of all fees established via ordinance and approved by the Baldwin City Council. This fee schedule will be evaluated and amended as necessary on an annual basis. This is, the reason we wanted to add this is because there are ordinances that exist that we may not have encountered yet or worked with that have fees established, and if we don't see them, we don't know that they exist to put them on here, but we also don't want the public to think that's not a fee because it's not here. But we will add it when we find it. Hopefully, we will be able to find this quickly though once we get codified, which we signed an agreement last week, so we are well on our way. It's been a long time coming.
Sure has.
Yeah.
But those are the only changes that we're asking to be amended. Any questions?
Eric, any questions? Okay. Can I have a motion to approve the revised FY 26 master fee schedule as presented?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Lehman. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilman Keith. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, and then we added a cleanup day budget amendment, Ms. Woodmaster.
We would have added this on the agenda, however, Scott and I were ships in the night last week. So I just got this today. We don't want to delay payments to Waste Away, but they were the garbage disposal company that we used for cleanup day. So the fee for all of the trash we picked up over the last month, it took us 3.5, almost 4 weeks, I think.
There's a lot of trash.
To get everything up. The total fee came in at $8,523.50. This is the most we've ever spent on disposing of cleanup day trash, which is both exciting and a cost. Scott so very kindly is sacrificing part of his budget to accommodate that. He has requested that we move $8,600 from his vehicle maintenance and repair line item down to garbage disposal to accommodate that request. There's a few things that we had slated to be repaired that didn't need it this year, so he delayed that.
He's great at finding a way to make things happen. How many, so there was 10-yard containers, how many of them did we end up?
We had 13 30-yard roll-offs and one 10-yard.
It was where?
It's on page 24.
Oh, yeah, these little, tiny little words that I can't see without spending glasses. Just kidding. Yeah, I can see it. So that's amazing. I'm glad this is gonna be kind of a weird question, but just because it's here and I'm curious. We used, Waste Away. In the past, I know, FCS.
Mhm.
I know that they've changed, but FCS, a lot of times would donate, not only were they our donator, trash hauler, but they, would donate to our events. And in particular, this one they would offer. Is there a reason why we didn't go with them?
It was a $500 in kind that they would donate, so it didn't cover necessarily the entire cost of a dump, but
Yeah.
that was their sponsorship fee for the
Gotcha.
city.
Yes.
Waste Away is not a sponsor of the city, we did ask, but
Yeah.
they declined. We did not go with the new company that bought out, or that merged with FC Sanitation, because of timing. Just getting connected and making sure that they had the resources that we needed.
Yeah.
Scott is already using Waste Away for the roll-off that we have at, the Public Works building, so it just made sense to go with them.
And I understand that the metal scrappers picked everybody's trash piles before.
They
we
sure
ate.
did. They sure did.
Some
They
of
were
what we-
busy.
Yeah, they were.
One of the ways
I
that we
mean,
offset
yes.
is
Is recycling the metal that people put out, so, yeah.
We did get that number back, it's just over $600 that we scrapped.
We
from
did
Single
scrap
Day.
some, yeah, that's
Yep.
good. Oh, we got some in there.
Yep.
Well, but I think a couple of things we have to think about for next year. Congratulations to code compliance for really hitting the
Yeah.
streets. And I think the city looks a lot better. There are a number of properties that he went and he said,
Mhm.
clean it up, this is
Here's your
the-
chance.
Here's your chance. And
They took it.
And I'm delighted that he did that. I mean, the idea is for city beautification and to help our residents, and it helped a lot of folks. But we didn't have a limit, a true limit on what you could put out. And there was a lot of C&D that our landfill won't take. So the construction, demolition, and also household trash people were putting out. So I think next year, we're gonna have a limit on what we will accept. So
Yeah.
any kind of flyer will say, we will accept this, we won't accept
Yeah.
this, because then now we're stuck with.
Yeah. Same reason we don't accept batteries.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, we're stuck with
We didn't
vinyl
do batteries
windows
this year, we did the previous year, right?
Mm. We did paints
Oh, it's
and tires.
paints, that's right.
And tires, the invoice hasn't come in yet, but it's over $1,300
Yeah.
in hauling fee for
Tire
our tires.
recycling.
Yeah, it was like he said it was a quarter of the way full. It was an 18-wheeler, so whatever that size Connex container
Yeah,
is.
container.
But a quarter of it was already full when they arrived here, and we filled it the rest of the way.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's a great, I think, however, and no, for one resident, in particular, the nice lady who, she wasn't physically able to get the trash off of her land, and the community came together and they didn't put it out on the street. Actually,
Yeah.
the checkmark junk removal came and actually brought it there, and so the city didn't have to take that, but it was, I've heard time and time again that this has been a huge, plus for residents, so, tires are expensive to get rid of, they're hard to get rid of, and guess where they end up? In the ditches, with stitches, yeah.
It's interesting that they charge so much because they sell them to the mulch companies, when they grow mulch with it.
Yeah,
So they're making money off of it.
Hand
So
over
it's interesting
fist,
that
yeah.
they charge you $5 a piece to get rid of them.
They also have some
Just so
EPD
they can sell them to the
regulations
mulch
that
company.
kind of
Yeah, that's expensive with the EV,
Yeah.
right, that's true too, but, just the fact that they're not ending up
Yeah.
in the bush, right? For us to find with our equipment that we then have to repair, so I think it's money well spent.
Pick up a cleanup day.
Yeah.
Right.
We found a couple.
We found all
Yeah.
kinds of things,
Yeah.
the shoe, the sock.
Part of a couch.
Yes.
I thought you were gonna say part of a cow. Couch. So funny.
I mean, somebody might have. We found some dead carcasses from animals.
Some leather.
Carcass.
Okay.
So we're
Some
moving
alive
maybe
ones.
600 from,
Yeah.
the repair,
Right.
vehicle repair.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. He felt pretty confident about that because we're this close to the end of the school year.
Right. Okay.
Can I have a motion to approve the cleanup day budget amendment to be expensed out of vehicle maintenance as presented? I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter, do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second from Councilwoman Davis, all those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries unanimously. Okay, that concludes our new business. We'll move on to announcements. The City of Baldwin will host a town hall meeting for the FY 2026 budget at 7:30 PM on May 20th at the Baldwin City Hall Community Room. We invite citizens to ask questions, meet department heads and staff, and discuss the future of Baldwin. Item number 2, join us for Fairings Theater, previously Movies in the Market, at the Tap Yard on May 23rd at 8 PM for a free screening of Moana 2. Bring a chair or blanket and enjoy a night under the stars with your friends and family. Concessions are available with all proceeds going to Shop with a Hero. Any announcements from council?
Not me.
Any announcements from staff?
Reminder, city offices will be closed on the 26th for the holiday, and the meeting will be moved to the next day, the 27th.
Very good, thank you. Okay, can I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
I have a motion from Councilwoman Venter, do I have a second? I have a second from Councilman Heath. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
What do you do?
We are adjourned.